Okay, so picture this. Late August 2025, the White House just unleashes this rapid-fire series of major policy announcements. I mean, over just 4 days, a whole wave of executive orders and fact sheets came out aiming to reshape policy on pretty much everything, from crime to architecture. So what exactly was in this policy blitz? Let's break it down. And I'm not exaggerating here. We're talking about a flood of executive orders, proclamations, and fact sheets, all crammed into a super tight window. It's the sheer volume, and the massive scope of all these directives that makes this whole thing so noteworthy. And the pace? It was just relentless. The whole thing kicks off on August 25th with some major executive orders. Then it just keeps going with new announcements every single day, ending with another round of orders and economic statements on the 28th. It was a nonstop flurry, for sure. So let's unpack the major themes. So when you sift through all this, the first major theme that really jumps out is a heavy focus on law and order. A huge chunk of these announcements were aimed squarely at addressing crime, and especially crime within Washington, D.C. So to really get why they did what they did, you have to start with the administration's own words. An official fact sheet framed the situation exactly like this, basically describing an emergency that, in their view, required direct federal intervention just to make sure the government itself could keep functioning safely. The response they came up with was this huge, multi-pronged federal surge. The order set off actions across different departments, hiring more police and prosecutors, creating new specialized law enforcement units, even setting up a dedicated D.C. National Guard unit. But it wasn't just about policing either. It also tasked agencies with looking into safety compliance in public housing and on transit systems. But it didn't stop with just putting more boots on the ground. The orders also took direct aim at what are called cashless bail policies. For D.C., the instruction was for federal agencies to go after federal charges against people who were arrested to make sure they could be held. And then, on a national level, the administration was told to figure out what federal funds could be held back from any place with similar policies. So you might be asking, what's the justification for a stance like that? Well, in the source documents, they point again and again to this one number, 163%. According to their fact sheet, this figure comes from a 2023 California study that found a zero bail policy there led to a 163% jump in crime among those who were released. All right, but this policy blitz wasn't just about law enforcement. Not at all. There was this whole other side to it, a really distinct effort to shape, our national identity through directives on things like federal architecture, the American flag, and other big national symbols. And get this, one of the most detailed orders was all about architecture. Seriously, it mandated that classical architecture, think Greek and Roman styles, would become the preferred and default style for federal buildings. It was a clear push for that classical look and a move away from more modern styles like brutalism, which is known for all that exposed concrete. Then there was another executive order that took a really hard line on protecting the American flag. And this went way beyond just calling for prosecutions under federal and state law. It actually pulled immigration into it, directing that any foreign nationals involved could have their visas or other benefits taken away. Okay, so we've covered crime and national symbols. But these policy changes also turned inward, targeting the federal government itself. One of the most significant orders made a huge shift in labor relations for employees at several key federal agencies. So what we're talking about here is something called collective bargaining. It's basically the process where federal employee unions get to negotiate with the government over their working conditions. Well, this executive order used power from a 1978 law to say nope, not for these agencies, and the reason given was national security concerns. And the justifications they gave? Let's just say they were pretty broad. They really stretched the definition of national security. I mean, look at this. Hydropower facilities were tied to energy security. Even the National Weather Service was included because apparently its data helps with military deployments. The order also roped in agencies like NASA and the Patent Office, citing their role in keeping critical technologies safe. And finally, timed just before the Labor Day weekend, the last big theme to pop up was the economy. The announcements were all about celebrating the American worker, talking about lower travel costs, and pushing for more accountability with how federal money is spent. And this quote from the White House press secretary really sums up the message they were pushing. The administration was drawing a direct line from its energy policies to lower gas prices.
framing it as a real, tangible savings for American families. And to back that claim up, they pointed to some very specific data on travel costs. An official article dropped these year-over-year numbers right before the holiday weekend. An 11% drop in hotel rates, 6% for domestic flights, and 3% for car rentals. It was all part of their message on affordability. All right, the last big piece of this puzzle was a presidential memorandum all about fiscal accountability. This one ordered the Attorney General to launch an investigation into whether federal grant recipients were using taxpayer money for illegal political lobbying. A report on what they find is due back to the president in 180 days.
So let's step back for a second. From crime in D.C., to the style of federal buildings, all the way to the cost of a holiday road trip, this 4-day policy blitz touched just about every corner of American life. The big question it leaves you with isn't really about any one policy. It's about the whole approach. What does a strategy like this, so fast, so broad, actually reveal about a way of governing?